Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So the big news from yesterday is that Jimmy Kimmel ripped me off.
Wait, what do you mean?
That's a big story yesterday.
What about Biden's big win?
Jimmy Kimmel stole my moniker and sort of paraphrased my riff, but that is, he Biden me. Jimmy Kimmel Biden me. I feel like Neil Kinnock. So as you know, and anybody listening to the show for, 8, 9 months, my moniker for the dearly departed Pete Buttigieg was Mannequin Pete.
Right.
And I said that
you own that. That is all yours.
Mannequin Pete. Right. A grand insight on my part, if I do say so myself, and I just did. And I said upon his departure, this was just in time for him to get back to the Macy's men's department in Mishawaka and model the line of spring line of Kenneth Cole suits.
That's right.
Yeah. And I this, men's department at the Macy's Mishawaka, I've been using that for 9 months too.
Forever.
Listen to Jimmy Kimmel talk about Mannequin Pete's departure.
Pete Buttigieg was an important candidate. He was the first openly gay frontrunner for a major party. He was also the first candidate to dress like he worked at Office Max every single day. Mayor Pete is expected to go back to his job working as a mannequin at Gap Kids.
Mannequin at Gap Kids. I mean, that has a little bit of an unseemly overtone where I was purely comedic and fun-loving in my characterization. So, I mean, if I could borrow from Donna Brazil, hey, Jimmy Kimmel, go to hell. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of you stealing my stuff. I want a check. Oh, yeah, and then Joe Biden had a good night and Bernie didn't. For more on that, we're pleased to be joined by Rich Lowry, editor of National Review and Fox News contributor, as well as author of The Case for Nationalism, How It Made Us Powerful, United, and Free. Rich, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So the handle last night into this morning is that let's all get ready for Joe Biden as the nominee to face Donald Trump. He's all of 70 delegates ahead with a lot of states to go and a lot of vulnerabilities. I understand the momentum is with him, South Carolina, to overperforming last night relative to expectations. But do you think this is over?
I think he has a significant advantage and is the front runner again, astonishingly enough. I mean, there have been comebacks before, John Kerry in 2004, McCain in 2008, but those guys were left for dead and came back before the voting started. Joe Biden finished 4th and 5th in Iowa and New Hampshire. His best showing was a distant second in Nevada. Then he wins South Carolina by 30 points, and within 3 days transforms the race utterly and has a 30 and 40-point surge places. I mean, this is the most astonishing political comeback we have seen. Now, one of the ironies, and what I'm about to say is really paradoxical and counterintuitive, you don't need to be a good candidate when you're winning by 30 points. And that's the thing. Kind of the black vote just lifted Biden up in South Carolina, made him viable, made him the quote-unquote electable candidate again, and then everyone flocked to him. But we haven't seen him, perform under a microscope like a front-runner has to in a while now. So he's going to get that scrutiny again. There's obviously major performance problems with Biden. Bernie's going to take the wood to him and is not going to, go slipping out into that great good night quietly. But there's a geographic advantage now for Biden, and the dynamic that seemed like it was going to apply to Bernie, which is once you get ahead in a proportional representation race, it's hard to track you down, now applies to Biden. And, Bernie's going to win places. Bernie could win in Michigan very easily next week, but the problem he's going to have is the problem he had last night, which he'll win places somewhat narrowly. Michigan will probably be close, so he won't get many delegates out of it, whereas Biden is going to smash him in places like Mississippi, Georgia, Florida. You put Florida and Georgia together, that's a Texas or almost a California. I think they're 300-something delegates. So I think what Bernie's looking at now is just all of a sudden, within the course of 3 days, after running for president for 4 years after 2016, he's back to 2016. He's a step behind, close, and competitive, but a step behind an establishment front runner that he probably can't run down.
Well, and here's the thing, too, right? He knew this going in. The problem he has is he just has very limited appeal to black voters. And Joe Biden, I think I saw the exit polling, Joe Biden winning black voters 57-17, which is why he rolled through the South. And and that momentum also with the establishment rallying around him, and then that being amplified by their friends in the media helped him surprise in Massachusetts and Minnesota, perhaps Maine as well. But he can't. He has almost zero appeal to a quarter of the Democrat primary electorate, and you just can't win a national election that way.
Yeah, so I mean that's true. He widened out a little bit among blacks, young blacks. He widened out a little bit racially from 2016 because Sanders really worked the Hispanic vote.
Yeah,
and
he is the Latino
made
vote.
inroads there. But the where he didn't widen out is ideologically, and then this is sort of the key demographic that doesn't get as much focus in terms of age. There's no old people who are going to vote for Bernie Sanders, just none. And I think it's because they have memories of what socialism really is, and they're old enough not to get caught up in delusions of a coming revolution. So that really crimps Bernie. But look, the worm has turned a couple times in this race. So any great certain statements made with great certainty have proven false largely. So we should have a little modesty about what happened, what's going to happen here. But it's clear Bernie is a step behind.
And what's the play for Elizabeth Warren? She didn't win any states, and she came in third in her own state of Massachusetts.
It's ridiculous. She shouldn't have been in the race anyway. I don't know how possibly she justifies staying in now, unless she says that the rule that you should win your own state was written by transphobic males or whatever she'll come up with.
Yeah,
but this is a huge embarrassment. And in terms of being siloed as a candidate, she just gets siloed into college-educated women, and she overperformed her vote relative to the rest of her vote among those voters. But that's just not enough. That's just not enough to win. And another point on the coalition, Biden's going to have his vulnerabilities in the general election, obviously. But what he's showed, the last 10 days, where you have some appeal to working class whites, you have a lot of appeal to African Americans, and as we saw last night, you can win suburban college-educated women too. Those are the three constituency Democrats really need in November.
Well, first on Elizabeth Warren and that glass ceiling you're imposing on her, which is just despicable to me. She persists, Rich. That's what she does. She persists, and just get used to it. So she's gone or effectively gone. And what about? Well, actually, I want to go back to what you just said. Joe Biden's coalition. That's a coalition after the other candidates were measured and found wanting, much like the candidates against Romney in 2012 on the Republican side. And that coalition is among Democrats in a Democrat primary. Joe Biden was left and has been pushed exceedingly further left in the primary on guns, with announcing Beto as his gun czar, on imprisoning fossil fuel company executives because they're fossil fuel company executives. I mean, this is that his appeal in a general election with actual swing voters or blue dog Democrats who voted for Trump, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
True. Absolutely true. It's a very good point, and he's gotten pushed and will be, effectively owned by the left. There's no way Biden, if he's president, is not going to push for the left most plausible health care plan. It's just that he's more realistic about what you can get than Bernie is. But I think that the problem for Biden, the problem for Republicans or the threat to Trump is obviously they're going to make a huge amount of Biden's gaffes. Obviously there's a performance issue there where you kind of even wonder whether he can make it through a general election without imploding in some high-pressure moment. Plus, they'll make a lot of, this is the ultimate Washington insider, and his family's gotten really rich.
Right.
So those are things they can really hit him on. The problem is with Hillary had been around for decades, and everyone was used to hating her. Like, she was radioactive. And Biden, a lot of people, we have sort of a casual contempt for him, but it's sort of tinged with a certain amount of amusement, and I don't think he's not hated the same way. Now maybe he will be by November. That's the way our politics works. But he's not, in that respect, he's not a Hillary-like figure.
Well, right, and so the Trump play, if you're advising the Trump campaign, and you have sort of this combination of vulnerabilities that to some extent you could argue you have to pick one. He's incompetent, he doesn't clear the competency threshold, or he's corrupt and he leveraged his public office to enrich himself and his family, a la Hillary Clinton. Well, if he's this sort of corrupt mastermind, then it's hard to also argue he's a buffoon too. So which is it?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd tend to go. The performance stuff. Trump will nail him on it. And he'll nail him on it in the way he always does, which is like makes it really hard for you to respond without playing on his territory. And then he hits really painfully on something that's true, right? And there might be something. I hope there isn't. There might be something going on with Biden. It might just be, age 50, you begin to have trouble remembering names. So when you're
Amy knows all
77
about
and
that.
you're out on the campaign trail and you're tired, it all kind of adds up. But that's going to be, how's Biden's going to handle that? It's going to be tricky. But I think the Washington insider thing. And corrupt, and he pretends to be middle class Joe and different, but his brothers, his sons, they all enriched themselves. I think that could be a powerful theme that's been relatively unexplored. Like no Democrats have made that case against him. Bernie's going to hit him on some ideological issues here, and is already up with Social Security ads in Florida, but no one's made that attack on Biden.
Now, this morning, Mike Bloomberg is reassessing his campaign with his cohorts there in New York City. What do you think is going to? How is this going to end?
I assume it's going to end soon. It was almost worse winning America Samoa than winning nothing. Because it's just sort of hilarious that he won there, and
Did
I
he
guess
even
it was a
campaign
caucus.
there? I mean,
I'm sure he bought. I think he bought off.
bought the island.
Someone, someone said he had a campaign team of 7 people in American Samoa.
really? Well, he did a good job.
But I'm not a scourge of money in politics. It's a free country. You can spend as much as you want. But there was something just really unseemly about how Bloomberg was going about this. Obviously, a key moment was that first debate when it exposed him as a Wizard of Oz type figure, where you look at his ads and you're like, whoa, what a champion, a total leader of incredible muscularity and vision. And then you see him on the stage, like, who is this guy? He was getting destroyed by Elizabeth Warren. So I think it made the ads less credible. And then, as I kind of suspected, this is at least one thing I was right about, he was kind of borrowing public polling. He was buying public polling, but he wasn't buying support. So once it came around to a real race and people had to decide and other candidates were playing in these states, he didn't totally collapse. He held up a little bit, but it mostly eroded away. And it was the same thing was true of Steyer in South Carolina. So, this is the most astonishing metric of how much money an organization really matters. Biden had no money and no organization in most of these places and hadn't showed up in most of these places. And just the momentum and the free media created this enormous surge.
And the known quantity, obviously much more of a known quantity than Bloomberg. Now, I hope Bloomberg stays in to give Guam a shot. I just like to see
the island candidate.
Yeah,
remember when Obama said 57 states, whatever those. I think he was thinking of places like American Samoa. So Bloomberg will wipe up the other 7 of our 57 states.
The other thing about Bloomberg, though, just as like a cautionary tale, I think you're exactly right about him buying audience but not support, and those are 2 different things. But the other thing is, he had this record that was sort of begrudgingly respected as mayor of New York City by technocrats sort of across the spectrum. But he spent his entire candidacy apologizing for it. So wait a second, you're this uber competent guy who's a problem fixer, but you're apologizing for everything you did in New York. How do you square those 2 for me?
Yeah, and then it just got to. I mean, this was another big factor. End of the day, as Warren said, and I guess in the second debate that Bloomberg was part of, he wasn't acceptable to the party. He was not acceptable to its base. So the whole theory, it seemed as though the theory was working when Biden was collapsing, because that was a big part of his case. But the idea that the party would swing to him just always seemed crazy. And if it had gotten to a Bernie Bloomberg race, Bernie would have won that pretty easily, because Bernie, whatever his deficits and how narrow his coalition is relative to Biden, perhaps, Democrats have a fairly fond view of him. 70% approval rating, something in the party, and they weren't shocked and outraged at the idea that Bernie might win the nomination, whereas Bloomberg's numbers were all much worse than that. So that's a key thing that happened, is that Bernie needed a Bernie Bloomberg race, and Bloomberg wasn't capable of it, and Biden revived.
And I want to emphasize your point too about money in politics, which is such the cheap theatrics you get from politicians decrying it. $750 million between Bloomberg and Steyer, and they have American Samoa collectively to show for it. So it does say something about the quality of the candidate. Last question: what about the Jim Comey Judas kiss for Joe Biden? Is John Brennan going to be next?
That was didn't at least for a moment make you want to have a little second thoughts about whether you should support Biden or not?
I love it. I just love the fact that Jim Comey, Mr. Smith, going to Washington, there is a man without a country other than CNN and the Washington Post.
It's so pathetic. It's like, all right, so this is what all the elites doing, all the smart people are doing, the cool people. So I got to do it too. It was typical Comey.
He is Rich Lowry, editor of National Review, Fox News contributor. The book, The Case for Nationalism, How It Made Us Powerful, United, and Free. Rich, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/search. That's ZipRecruiter.com/search.
Hey, have you seen the new cyber threat warning about the conversation hub?
Hijacking? Totally. Cyber criminals are using email account takeover and brand impersonation to insert themselves into email conversations and steal money from businesses.
Right. That's why I tell my clients about
Barracuda. Same here. They use artificial intelligence to detect and block sophisticated attacks, including account takeover and brand impersonation.
Man, I guess you did see it.
Don't become a victim. Protect your business at Barracuda.com. Barracuda, your journey secured.
Let's do it. Let's get healthy and stay healthy and boost our immune system during this cold and flu season. And the best way to do that is to take balance of nature. Because admit it, you're not eating a healthy diet on your own, not getting enough fruits and veggies in your daily diet. And that's where balance of nature comes in. 6 capsules a day, that's it, is giving you 10 servings of 31 fruits and veggies. Let's bring back the healthy you and take balance of nature. And right now, if you order your